Founded 20 years ago, the Cesar Chavez Student Center has been the core of student life at San Francisco State University.
Mostly what I do there is drink lots of coffee, smoke cigarettes outside, eat lots of good food, mostly pizza, I think, and burritos. I've seen movies there and bands as well, some good music, some bad music.
Students, staff, and faculty enjoy food, fun, and friendship.
It's also a good place. It's like a far eastern tea house. I come here to find out what's the gossip of the day and to learn about it. It's also a good place to meet all kinds of people with different political backgrounds and different ideologies, and to see that what the students in the school think.
The Student Center was built in 1975 and designed by architect Pafford Keating Clay.
The students had a tremendous impact as to, who was going to be the architect, how the building was going to look, every detail in terms of having a place that was going to be unique, that it was going to be recognized through all the, through all California.
In the past 20 years, Cesar Chavez Student Center has hosted commencement brunches, madrigal dinners, tournaments, craft fairs, and some unusual characters. The Student Center is currently expanding. It is being renovated to meet the needs of the growing student body.
We will be designing a auditorium. We will also be looking at changing out certain parts of the building and the functions of certain parts of the building so that we take better advantage of spaces that we do have. Obviously, we want all students to come in and use this building. That's what it's here for. And all students pay for this building. And so they should come and get the benefits out of it. Come and enjoy it.
On May 5th, 1994, the Student Union was dedicated in honor of Cesar Chavez, the late founder of the United Farm Workers of America. Cesar Chavez recognized the strength that cultural diversity brings to California. The Student Center is now a permanent symbol of this diversity.
Come on, Hector, let us know if you can do this. Don't be shy. Use your very eye. Don't be a house.
It's like the heart of the university for students and for everybody.
This mural actually is the mural that set me off into a new kind of a new philosophy of why I'm here to paint, basically. And like what I feel now is I'm here to kind of explain things in a way. Or I learned a lot about like the struggle that everybody in this mural went through, and people in going to a new country goes through, you know, because I didn't experience that. My parents experienced it. I never really I never really understood it till like just become, not through this, but just recently, you know, like how much of a struggle that is, and how strong they had to be to go through it. I mean, my dad came down here, like, he told me a story. He came down here with like $18 or something. It could have been like a little less than that, I don't know. But yeah, he told me something about like $18, came here, got a job, went to the army, and like now he owns a house, he has a wife, he has kids. That's incredible to me. I mean, I can't even understand how he did that. You know, I feel like I could never do. I go to another country and with no money. I mean, that's like crazy, you know. Yeah. It's a trippy thing, but they went through it, you know. Never really respected that before because I never understood it. But like, I mean, I'm sure like everybody around here in ethnic minority type way or whatever, their parents went through struggles to get down here so their kids could go to school and have jobs and live the American way, you know. And it's amazing. And this mural is like giving back to that, man. And trying to just give back to what they did, you know, because it's often overlooked, I think, by their kids and stuff like that. You know? As far as imagery, what I did was tried to bring the old, which is the old style architecture of the homeland on the left side, and then I tried to bring where we're at this point. This is the cities and buildings, and as you can see right here, I put these lights in here to represent it's like the fast-paced life, and I made this red light really bright just to kind of as a slow down, stop thing, like enjoy life a little more, you know. Don't live the fast-paced life. The tree represents just infinity, because the tree is like, to me, is infinite. It's like shaped in the 8 form. The roots go down to the ground, and it's almost like the branches are roots going to the sky. So that's what that represents, and it's in the middle. And we're all on the family tree too, so we all come from each other. So that's why that's in the middle, and everybody's kind of protruding out from there. Real cool, somebody with the accomplishments that she did looked at something that I did, you know? I thought that was pretty cool. She did a great speech. It's like the angriness that she had in it, you know? She was really like, she was really a strong presence is what I felt, you know? So I really admired the way she's presented herself.
Aloha. Greetings to all my brothers and sisters and students and comrades, and especially to all you people of color who've made it through 500 years of genocide by the United States. I am deeply, deeply honored. I cannot believe I'm going to be on a mural so far from my home country. A mural dedicated to justice and to human rights. In this time of global terrorism by the United States against planet Earth, particularly we, the people of color in the third and fourth worlds, it is imperative that we collectively and publicly engage the struggle for human rights. It is noteworthy that these rights are identified as human rights. They are not, according to Bush, American rights, white people's rights, or first world rights. They are human rights for human beings. These are rights, in other words, that accrue to human individuals, that is all of us here, within the global family of nations. And it doesn't matter whether you are from the Middle East, or from the Asian continents, or from the tiny archipelagos of the vast Pacific Ocean where I hail from. First among these human rights is that of physical and cultural existence, the right to life, in other words, as individuals and as peoples, the right to political and economic and social life as nations among the world's family of nations. The animating force of these rights is human culture, the examples that we just saw. Therefore, it is obvious that self-determination as individuals and as peoples and as nations depends upon the flourishing of cultural uniqueness and creativity. And this in turn depends upon full participatory membership in the recognized family of nations, what in Hawaii we call the Lahui. As we all know, however, the diversity of the world's many nations and peoples is threatened. It is threatened by the last superpower on planet Earth, the United States of America. The American government, that behemoth of the North, has depended upon genocide and land theft since its founding as a settler nation. This vicious quest for power that has characterized America since Plymouth and the Puritans continues in the war for oil in the Middle East. As a native woman from Hawaii, whose genealogy predates the arrival of the imperialist West by some 2,000 years, I am intimately acquainted with the American mission to kill, to conquer, and to take. In 1893, American Marines invaded my country, Hawaii, overthrew our sovereign ali'i Liliuokalani, and replaced her with a hand-picked, all-white, all-male gang of thieves anxious for annexation. Doesn't this sound like a day? Once Hawaii was stolen, the American empire spilled out into the vast Pacific, taking all of Micronesia and eventually the Philippines and the homeland of our sisters who just performed for us, Samoa. American imperialism had advanced from the frontiers of the continent to the archipelagos of the largest ocean in the world in less than a century. In every instance, self-determination, justice, and human rights were assaulted, denied, and extinguished by the conquering white people called Americans. The surviving native peoples who remain today are remnants, just remnants, of the millions who came before. Today we suffer confinements, incarcerations, on reservations, in ghettos, in prisons. We are landless, we are impoverished, and we are dispersed to the corners of the earth. Diaspora is what the intended consequences of conquest and racism are. For Native peoples in particular, there is a slow national death of population decline. We are the strangest of disappeared. The living disappeared. If this is our current condition, how can we, brothers and sisters, the dispossessed, the confined, the aliens, how can we promote human rights? How can we engage a struggle for justice, for self-determination, and a self-determining future? Let me suggest a few strategies. We must first understand the state of this world, not only the state of our communities and families. Critical to that understanding is the Bush misnamed war on terror. As a result of the World Trade Center bombings, we, the wretched of the earth, are now subjugated to a new era, an era of fascism, American fascism. Strange as this may sound, our era was predicted by the U.S. Army, of all entities, at the close of World War II. In a little-known paper called Orientation Fact Sheet 64, they warned of a future threat of fascism in America. The report argued, and I'm quoting, Fascism always camouflages its plans and purposes. Any fascist attempt to gain power in America would not use the exact Hitler pattern. It would work under the guise of super patriotism. This was the warning of the official document, and that is what we are enduring today. The Bush Doctrine fulfills this warning. For example, the recent Patriot Acts 1 and 2 are prime examples of a new fascism abroad in the land. The abridgment of our civil liberties now includes assaults on rights to counsel, that is, to a lawyer, to a presumption of innocence, to freedoms of movement, to private telephone conversations, even visits to your local library. The FBI has published an 800 number to allow anonymous tips about any person believed to be suspicious. What is the nature of that suspicion, its proximate cause, its reliability? It doesn't matter. Once the call is made, the FBI is required by this new law to investigate you. But investigate what? And whom? And why? Apparently, the Bush administration believes all citizens, all of us here, especially those of us of color, are automatically suspect because of hyper-militarism, of aggressive war against unseen enemies. But if we are suspect, of what are we suspected? Exercising our alleged rights to public speech, to criticism of the government, what I am doing right now, including public policy, undeclared war against the Muslim world, abroad and at home, and the continuing theft of civil liberties. Is the United States safer now, more beloved, more respected by the rest of the world? Quite the opposite, as we know. So what can we expect next? House visits by the FBI to test our individual patriotism, blood samples, contact lens screening. This may sound silly, but it's not at all unbelievable. As large and small American flags appear everywhere, and while both national and local news media jump on the patriot bandwagon, those of us who criticize the American war against Islam, against Native peoples, against that which is dark and foreign, are now suspects. Suspected of what? Of the practice of organized resistance in the defense of human rights. So we come, brothers and sisters, to the last question: what is to be done? If we are truly to be self-determining, to allow the practice of human rights, we must do the following. Organize against U.S. militarism. During the Vietnam War, when I was a student at the University of Wisconsin, we organized effectively to get the military off of our campus. We must publicly and loudly and continuously oppose the Patriot Acts 1 and 2. We must oppose the Bush Doctrine of terrorism against the third and fourth worlds. And we must link with peace movements and people who struggle for self-determination. Peace and self-determination go together. We have learned that peace without honor, dignity, cultural freedoms, and the means of existence do not bring peace. It is humiliation, degradation, and eventual extinction that we, people of color, are now facing. Let me leave you with this last thought. The sovereignty of my native people, Hawaiians, was extinguished in 1893 when our native government was overthrown by the vicious and hateful American military. It is today that same vicious and hateful American military which threatens the world, not only the safety of the Middle East or of dark people, but of all living things. It is then for survival of the world that we must speak out and resist and keep on resisting. Thank you.
See the mural? You want to see it? Okay, let's do a countdown. Ready? Ready? Go. All right. Ready? All right. 100. 99. Okay. How about 50? 50? All right. I guess 10's kind of standard. Okay. Ready? Okay. So ready? 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4.
Cesar Chavez Student Center and the Richard Oakes Multicultural Center, we welcome you to the beginning of the celebration in honor of the life and legacy and spirit of Richard Oakes. This morning is the kickoff to the dedication and is a culmination of the week's activities that have been about his life, his contributions to not only multiculturalism, but to Native American people and people all over the world. This morning, I have the great pleasure of introducing a colleague of mine that was part of the naming and created the consciousness so that the Richard Oakes Multicultural Center could exist. He's an alumni of San Francisco State and former Associated Students Incorporated body president, Mr. Lee Sprague.
Family from New York.
Bonjour. Thank you all for coming out here today. This is a very important day in our history, in the history of San Francisco State, and the contributions of Richard Oakes and the legacy that he left behind. All of us are living part of that legacy right now. This has been a very profound experience in our people's lives here in this part of the world and across North America. And we're going to start out the activities with our first group, the Intertribal Pomo Dancers. We're going to ask, though, that all television cameras, pictures, be turned off for at least this first dance right here. After that, things will be okay. So I'm going to ask everybody to turn off the cameras right now for this first song.
Shades back on, these lights are bright. But they're real glasses. I'm gonna tell a little story on how this project got started in introducing the next speaker. We're going a little bit off schedule today, so I see folks looking at your programs, but we're just gonna kind of go with the flow today. Back in the early 90s, about 1994, I might be a little off on the year. It's when the African American students were just naming Malcolm X Plaza outside. Shortly after that, the La Raza organizations named the building the the Cesar Chavez Student Union. And a couple students started talking, Native students started talking amongst ourselves that we needed to have representation as the first peoples on this land. So I'm more comfortable holding this without this blockage here. And so we kicked it around and we a few names were thrown out, and we decided that Richard Oakes, because of his contribution to this campus and also to the Native community here in the Bay Area and the Native communities across this whole land on what we call Turtle Island, we thought that it was very fitting that we should choose Richard Oakes. So, thanks. So, Ami Barnes, who has been very involved in a lot of the student government and the student the student, help me, Ami. The Student Center Governing Board, all these legislative bodies around here, I get confused. But she was part of the group that said, well, you know, what are you guys going to do? So we gave her the name of Richard Oakes. And one of those students isn't here today. We thought he might show up. A few years back when, I'm going off track. Let me back up. Ami kept coming around and saying, we need that resolution. We need that resolution. Where's that resolution? So Ami lit the fire under us. And I've got to give her credit for that, and I thank her very much for that. Thank you, Ami. That was a lot, because that was a long process, so the story goes on, because she lit the fire under us then, and a student that's not here today, we thought he might show up, Theron Hawaste Wayhill, got the ball rolling, started a resolution, and then he left. So time went on, and then Ami came to me and said, Michelle, we need that resolution. And I'm saying, okay. You know, I'm trying to carry on with schoolwork and life and what have you. And he kept coming at me. Michelle, we got that resolution. The board's meeting. We need representation at the board. We need to get your community here. So we put the word out, and we put the word out to the Indian Studies faculty here. We put the word out to the community. And there's some folks that I saw here, Fred Short, I think he's getting coffee right now, Fred and Connie. They came out, there he is, Fred Short, American Indian Movement. Came along with other people. Tony Gonzalez from the International Indian Treaty Council came and was supportive. He brought a video. Dr. Betty Parent was very instrumental in giving us support. Angela Gonzalez, who no longer teaches here, was very instrumental. Those are the people that supported this project from the beginning. It's important everybody knows that. So this was a long introduction, but I wanted to tell that story. And with that, and Ami Barnes, please welcome her. She played a major role in getting this project going. Ami Barnes.
Let me thank you for this day of reflection. And I've enjoyed everything that everyone has said, particularly when they spoke about my husband. Because actually what it does is that it makes me feel like he's alive. And I know the Imam said that a martyr never dies, but the reality is when you go home, Imam Musa, he's not there. But I understand what he means spiritually. And he still motivates me and guides me because my parents reared me to be happy. I don't know what that means, but they wanted me to be happy. But I received responsibility, tutoring, training, insightfulness from Malcolm. That you just cannot be always happy, that you have to be responsible. And I don't know where I would have been had I not had his tutoring in lessons of responsibility. Since when he was assassinated, I had 4 babies, had just finished my first trimester, and was into my 4th month, my 2nd trimester with twins. God have mercy on me. I didn't need 1 baby and I had 2 more. So that lessons in responsibility then I received from my husband. And so today I've been able to reflect. And someone said I'm supposed to give a sign. I don't know who I'm supposed to give it to so that I can look on the face of my husband before I start speaking. And I certainly would like to do that. So whoever I was supposed to give a sign to, please acknowledge that the sign is given. a radio program in New York. Have to be responsible now. Does anybody have a Kleenex? This brother was just, he tried to give me this hanky before, and I wouldn't take it because I didn't want him to take it home to his wife. Let me just say to you that I have a radio program in New York, and because so many people get confused over what it is that they have to do in life, this is my opening. Render unto Cesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God. We have a number of agendas as human beings, particularly when we understand that we must live holistic lives, and that our lives must be broadened and extended in order for us to function as full human beings. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people are still looking through rose-colored glasses. And a lot of people are still very myopic and only see their point of view. And don't understand that we live in America where there is religious freedom. You can't persecute somebody because of their religion. You cannot persecute someone because of their political beliefs. You cannot persecute someone else because of their language. You cannot persecute someone else for their human differences, since all of us, according to the good book, are created in the image of God. And God never put one ethnic group on earth to be in charge of all other ethnic groups. When I go to colleges, I usually say new professionals, young intellectuals, world leaders. Why do I say that? I say that primarily because you're never defined by the position that you are in. You're defined by the position you are ascribing to. And you will be the leaders of tomorrow. You will be the young intellectuals, old intellectuals by then, I guess. Therefore, the decisions that you will have to make, you shouldn't have to make. But we live in a society where a lot of abuses have taken place. A lot of people have been oppressed. And you will have to unscrabble that. So that we must ask students to focus on the goals of education. Let me just say that in an educational institution, it is supposed to be a transforming institution where justice and liberty and all of the things of understanding authority and losing fear takes place. But yet we see that with all of the years that we have been educated, those things have not been erased, have they? No. It is extremely important then that you understand that you have a job to do. Not only of thinking critically, but of thinking clearly, of understanding that I have as much right to live a holistic life as anyone else. And yet when we go to the prisons And yet when we go to certain neighborhoods, and yet when we go to certain corporate places, we find very few people there look as if we are still in America. Destabilization is not just in our homes, as a lot of people try to say, but destabilization is in our communities, in the cities and states, and the entire world. We must be concerned with the welfare of our people in a changing society. We must understand then that we must gain control, if not our communities, ourselves. You have to have control over yourself. How do you get it? Well, you got enough professors here to teach you the process. Is that a fact? That's a fact. I would like to say that today my responsibility is to thank you, all of the administrators and students who had the desire, who had the determination, who had the technical level of artistic development and the creative brilliance to redo this mural.
Days of my life, to see us come out here to hear the words of this woman who has seen so much and has so much to teach us. Everything we learn isn't in the classroom. Some things are just above and beyond anything that has to do with the university. Some things are beyond what we have to do in our daily lives. The struggles of indigenous peoples, this in the decade of the International Decade of the World's Indigenous Peoples. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Rigoberta Manchu.
Shibegich akalab abomab alitomab nim lahmaltiosh shishul chichanim wenje kimpe pushimuleu irushimuleu shutaklo rutziliwach. ¿Quién sabe si voy a traducir estas palabras?
Who knows if those words are going to be translated?
El quiché es un idioma muy rico.
Quiché is a very rich language.
Que cuando uno lo habla, por ejemplo, para saludar, cuando uno saluda a los niños, los jóvenes, las jóvenes, las señoras, los señores, los abuelos, los ancianos. O sea, uno no puede decir todos ustedes, sino uno tiene que dirigir a cada uno de estas generaciones.
For example, when you greet someone, the greeting, you have to say a special hello to the children, to the young man or the young woman, to the man or the woman, to the grandfather, to the grandmother, to the elderly. You have to have a special greet. There's no way to say just the all-inclusive you. You have to have a special way to say it to each of those people.
Y es con este mismo saludo que quiero saludarlos a ustedes.
And it is with that same greeting that I want to greet all of you.
Tenía un año nada más.
I was born when the internal conflict started in Guatemala. I was only 1 year old.
Cuando yo fui niña, ya solo oí del conflicto.
When I was a child, I heard of nothing more than conflict.
También cuando fui joven, solo había guerra.
And also when I was a young person, there was only war.
Y es hasta ahora que hemos terminado con ese conflicto.
And it's been only now have we finally finished with this war, with this conflict.
Fueron 8 años de negociaciones de paz.
This peace accord took 8 years to negotiate.
A veces las partes se retiraban de la mesa.
Sometimes the different sides withdrew from the negotiating table.
Había que traerlos otra vez.
And we needed to bring them back again.
Y se juntan otra vez.
And bring them together again.
Y firmaron uno por uno esos acuerdos de paz.
And one by one they signed these peace accords.
Y tuvimos la dicha, personalmente tuve el privilegio de estar cerca de ese proceso de paz.
And I had the happy honor, privilege to be close to this negotiations of the peace accords.
The building was constructed in the 70s, but the design happened in the 60s. On this campus, there was a desire for a home of our own, for a student home, all the way back to the 30s.
So they started talking in the 50s about having a student union. Every decision made at every stage of the game was made with a majority of students present and voting for it. Staff people vote, students vote, faculty vote. Every one of those groups chose the architect, Pafford, Keating, Clay.
In his design, he was working from what students of the 60s had wanted. That's so important. And it was interesting, whenever you see a building being built, you're looking at the ground, and then you're looking at trenches, and then you sort of see poles and rods, and it doesn't look like anything, and then pretty soon a structure begins to sort of form in front of you. When it appeared, there certainly were comments. The Chronicle said it looked like two grand pianos and a face-off. There is purpose. There are 2 pyramids, but one is devoted to sound, one is devoted to silence. So he had a concept, and in the middle of the building would be sort of the meeting, the energy center. And when people might comment on that building, they have to realize that that building is a child of the 60s.
The renovation and expansion project began as a student referendum in December of 1991. There, the referendum was called Proposition U. It was called the Terrace Enclosure Project. It proposed to the student body at that time to increase the fee from $26 to $52 to pay for this renovation and expansion project that we now see completed.
The reason the Student Center went towards doing a renovation and expansion of the building was that right from the very beginning, I mean almost as soon as the original building was completed, it was realized that the building was not going to be big enough to handle everything that people wanted to have it do here on the campus.
Students and the staff of the Student Center and the governing board at that time knew and could foresee as the campus grew, so did the Student Center, that it would have to grow to meet the needs of the campus. I actually became involved in the project through the Renovation and Expansion Committee as a member of the governing board at that time before I became the project coordinator.
I know that this area that will begin, they're working on this area right now.
There was a great need to have very open and frequent communication. We would rely on the project coordinator to continue to get information out to the campus community in a timely fashion.
You know, from the comment board that we had downstairs in the lobby? Yes.
How it was presented to the campus was through targeting various members of the campus community, such as town hall meetings that were specifically inviting and targeting students, staff, and faculty. There was also tabling, information days, flyering, putting out information about, do you know what your student dollar is used for in the building? So it was all kinds of strategies that were done, I would say probably beginning in 95 and 96, to get ready for construction that ultimately began in 1998, December.
Okay, construction update. Ladies and gentlemen, attention please, construction update. Find out more about the renovation, construction information. In this building, there's going to be new things to do. There's going to be some new meeting rooms, some new multicultural centers, an art gallery, the Jack Adams Hall. We'll also have a new bookstore entrance for the ease and comfort of travel among our student body. Walk, don't run.
The concerns that we had at the beginning was that how are we going to keep the building open, continue to provide services, continue to maintain an environment that business can continue and we can go on with our day-to-day activities.
We couldn't even think of closing the building and closing the food services and the bookstore and the AS programs that are housed in the Student Center, the Women's Center, and there's a lot of services that students use.
You know, it would have been great to have a place shut down and let us do our work. Our concerns for having an open facility while we work on it is obviously number one, safety. Safety for the people that are inside as well as our workers. A lot of work was done off hours for noise. There was also signs posted and barricades put up so that we were boarded off in an area so that our work was behind the scenes, basically. There were temporary emergency exits that had to be in place. I think that was the toughest part of the job, was trying to get a schedule put together that fit everybody's needs.
Right away, when the fence went up around the building, we realized there's an immediate need for signage within the building. Although we had signs outside telling what was happening here, we needed a lot of directional signs.
I went to a lot of meetings with the disabled community in terms of the university-wide committee and communicating with the ADA officer, Don Brown, and
One of the areas where we were very sensitive to was people who needed some kind of assistance to be able to get through the building, and the impact that we would have on the elevators as we renovated elevators in the building.
That was a major renovation to make the building more accessible on all levels, as well as making it faster so it's not as slow, and it's just been completely overhauled. We had to work very closely with the vendors inside so that they could provide the food services.
So we began discussions with the vendors very early on about what this project meant to the center, about encouraging them to try to assist us in making sure that we do the best we possibly can at providing services to the campus while this is happening. But one of the things that they needed in order to be able to benefit from that was to have the Student Center be sensitive to the fact that their contracts ended at a certain period of time, and that we would need to be looking at trying to extend their agreements beyond the actual impact of the project so that they could realize the gains that would potentially be there once the project was completed.
The most dramatic moment for me was when I walked in the building and heard the jackhammering for the first time. I could not believe how loud that was, and I thought, we have got to do something for these students. For the first, I think, 4 or 5 months during construction, which is probably the most difficult. That was pretty much January through May of '99, where we were actually in the demolition phase.
That was when the old roof was being removed and other parts of the building were being taken apart so that we could actually start building the new parts of the building onto it.
It was pretty incredible that that kind of work would go on while people were in the building. So that was the beginning of bags and bags of giveaway candies, giveaway earplugs, 2 big signs by the doors saying, what do you think, how are you doing?
So we had a comment board for people to vent. A lot of it was people needing to vent and say, you know, this is ridiculous, how can you do this? From there, from the comment board, we were able to generate frequently asked questions that we then compiled and then put out to the campus community.
I was very impressed when the steel beams were brought in. And I found out that they were custom made in Montana, driven down from Montana. I mean, all the beams were scanned with a coder, so they knew exactly where they went. And we waited months for these beams to come in. How do you do that? How do you make sure it fits? And it was the engineer said, it's all been spec'd out and it all fits. And if it doesn't fit, we can make some adjustments, or we'll just get a new beam. I think that was one of the most exciting parts, to see the structure. It was all around Jack Adams Hall. That was those were the huge beams, and then the guys sitting up there welding them together. That was the first time I could really see that, wow, we're going to have a building. This thing is really going together.
what we have experienced to date has been just fantastic. The new auditorium, Jack Adams Hall, is one great example of that.
Jack Adams Hall has been just a huge success on campus. The first event we had in there was at the request of President Corrigan. He wanted the faculty welcome back.
Ms. Barnes, congratulations to you and to the Student Union Governing Board for an outstanding job on the expansion and renovation of the Cesar Chavez Student Center. And thank you for inviting us to be the first group to make use of the new Jack Adams Hall. What a marvelous facility, and how proud Jack would have been of this board's accomplishment. A major project, more or less on time, more or less on budget. Not bad. Proposal of the governor.
I think it's going to be a real pivotal piece up here on the terrace.
One of the major components of the design was trying to make the building lighter, more light in the areas of the building.
It was a dark building before, and now with the skylight, it's really beautiful.
The art gallery is brand new, and that's a wonderful space. The artwork that they're showcasing now is really in a professional type space.
One of the things that students wanted very early on was a type of multicultural center. The space itself is very interesting with a very unique skylight that is in it, and it's developed in a round format to create inclusiveness of the participants that are doing an activity that's in the room.
For me, Richard Oakes is a warrior, a student, an activist, a father, husband, but a son of the Most High who has expressed himself as a liberationist. That's truly to me what Richard Oakes was.
Well, the Richard Oakes dedication took place in March. That blossomed into an event that was beyond our expectations.
But the consciousness and the impact that it will have on this campus and on this community and throughout the world is like that happened in Alcatraz on November 20th, 1969. A very small island, but it led ripples throughout the world. And that's what we want for the center. And that's why we wanted to name it after Richard Oakes.
We were able to bring the family of Richard Oakes. And they were just so appreciative that we named the center after Richard Oakes, what type of center it was going to be, and what we were going to do with that space.
Thank you once again, dear, for honoring my brother. And I'm very honored to be here to know that he does have friends on both sides that ever are.
That philosophy is what we want to bring to the Multicultural Center in terms of providing that opportunity to see things differently and be in an open and safe environment to discuss those differences.
One of the stars of the reservation is the Malcolm X Plaza. It's just a beautiful entrance.
When the architects came on, they saw that the plaza was this very, very important entrance into the building. And they not only attached onto the idea of doing a stage, but also redesigning the whole plaza and creating additional seating within the plaza and coming up with elements in the plaza that would tend to attract people into it.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the 25th anniversary celebration of the Cesar Chavez Student Center.
The celebration week for the Student Center was to honor and mark the 25th anniversary of the building. It was a week-long celebration to celebrate each of the aspects of the campus. One was Students' Day, one was Political Day, one was Alumni Day, one was Staff and Faculty Day.
What do you think about when you hear the name Cesar Chavez? What do you think about when you hear Rosa Parks? What do you think about when you hear these names along with Malcolm X, the plaza here? Well, I tell you, I think about historical events. This plaza really represents historically a place where political activism and challenge to the status quo took place.
And there we wanted to highlight at the end of the week with the visit from Dr. Yvonne Cagle, NASA astronaut, who came a year prior for commencement activities as a keynote speaker, and who talked so fondly about her time in the Student Center.
And it is my extreme pleasure and honor to have Dr. Yvonne Cagle.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be back home. I'm the class of '81, and I tell you, a day like today is something that you remember for the rest of your life. But so is your experience here at San Francisco State University. So I wanted to just sort of take you on a little journey. Now, you have to be careful when an astronaut wants to take you on a journey. But I want to take you on a little journey and just share with you my experience and my enthusiasm as I had the opportunity to be here as a student and ultimately to fly in space.
She is such a poised, wonderful person and had a huge following on campus. Students followed her all around that day. She was like a Pied Piper. And she would always reference the Student Center in a lot of the talks she gave that day, how this was a welcoming place for her, and it sustained her during her undergraduate days. And she would go up to the pyramid and look at the North Star. I just think it was one of the best things we've ever done here. And it was fitting that it was our 25th anniversary and the opening of the renovation.
One of the things that I'm particularly enthused about is that from the very beginning of the process, it was students that were involved in wanting to have the project happen. And they were the ones that were making the decisions as to what direction the project was going to take. The architects worked very closely with the student groups to be able to come up with what we have now today as part of our center. So I think that is definitely a model that should be used for any campus where they're thinking of having something that's on the campus specifically for students.
The project was very important, and it was ideal, and it was necessary for us to grow, but at the same time, it was part of a larger picture. Put your vision out there in terms of 5-10 years from now. What are students going to need? What are they going to want? What are the trends? So all of these things are changing. They're not the same as they were 10 years ago. So we got to be ready.